Alright, what's up guys? Hello, thank you very much for joining me. I do want to say a couple things before I get started into my thoughts and opinion on Final Fantasy 15. I have not completed the game yet. I'm a little over 19 hours played on it and stuff. Now, for many years, I refused to do bad reviews for games that I didn't like. And the reason that is because we all have our own opinions and our own thoughts, you know. And if I don't like a game, it doesn't mean somebody else isn't gonna like a game, you know. And that's exactly why I've always written in the past when I used to write all the time. I've always written a review about a game I liked, and I would talk about why I liked it. If it was a game I didn't like, I just didn't bother, you know. I'll let other people enjoy it, and I'm not gonna go and try and ruin it for them or anything like that, you know. But over many years, people kept asking me, "Why don't you like this game? Why don't you like it?" And I'm just like, you know, I didn't really want to talk about it because I'm like, you know, it doesn't matter why I didn't like it because it's not gonna be the same reasons that you might not like it. You might love it. But I did recently get into it with Titanfall 2, mostly because I was really passionate about 1. I loved 1, and then 2 just blew me away in the wrong way. It just kind of killed every hope I had for multiplayer ever again. But anyways, so that was the first time I actually got into a bad opinion on something. Other than just talking to people in general. Like if somebody came in my stream and asked me what I think about a game, I might say, I'm not into it, you know? But I've never really done bad reviews before. But I've decided that I will finally do it because people are always asking me, why don't you like something? Why don't you like something? So I'm like, all right, fine. You know, as much as I don't want to do it. I do love talking about video games though, you know, and that's why I'm here and so I'm going to do it. So yeah, I have not completed the game, 19 hours in. Another thing, as I realized something, maybe one of the biggest reasons I just do not enjoy this game. Now, I'm planning to finish it, planning to go through this entire game. I'm gonna force myself through it. It's not so bad that I can't force myself through it. It's just, anyways, I was expecting a Final Fantasy universe inside of a Skyrim-ish kind of game, right? Like the Final Fantasy open world action RPG. That's what I was expecting. But instead, I got just a bigger Final Fantasy old game with new combat. But it's for people who were thinking that it was funny because when they were showing off this gameplay, even with the Final Fantasy VII remake, which we've seen. And I've played the demo too. I played the demo, and I went around asking. Look, I've been watching this game for a long time. I've watched more gameplay than I've ever watched for any other game before it launched because I usually don't like spoilers. I've watched so much on this. I've seen so much gameplay before it ever came out. I played the freaking demo, and I did not like the demo. I thought it was beautiful, and I thought it had interesting things. But I went on a forum, one of the big forums, and I don't want to name them, whatever. I went on a forum and I just left a comment and I said, is the combat better in the official game? Because people had played it in Japan, and I wanted to ask about it. I was like, the demo's combat wasn't very good. So, I'd gotten some responses saying the combat is much better in the final game than it is in the demo. The demo's just like a very small taste. So I was like, all right. Go by that. We'll see. And then the more I kept watching gameplay, and I'm like, all right, this does look cool. And if it's like what these people are saying, then it should be fine. And the combat is actually much better than the demo. That I can agree with. But it's still not. It's not an action RPG. It's really hard to describe, man. It's not a turn-based, obviously, but it's also not an action RPG. They really rely on you to micromanage your team and with potions too. And before I get into that, let me get into. I wanted to start this off right, kind of going into it already. But so let me get into the good stuff first, because the good stuff is just outweighed by the bad. The bad just destroy. I have this small list of good things and then this enormous list of bad stuff. So let me talk about the good stuff real quick. The first time into the talent tree, I loved it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, whoa. Usually when I go into a talent tree in any game that I play that has a talent tree, I'm kind of like, you can spot the one talents you just don't care about. I'm just like, I don't care about this. I don't want that. I don't want this. I want this one talent out of 10. I will go for that talent, and then that's what I go for. And Final Fantasy 15, I wanted every single talent I've seen, and I still do. Like, I've gone through that tree, and I want them all. I have priorities, but I actually want, like, every talent in that tree, and I'm just like, wow, that is really cool. I've never seen that in a game before that has a skill tree. So that I loved. Crafting spells is really cool. I actually really like crafting spells. It's mostly I like it because it's very easy. It's actually pretty simplified. I was kind of thinking since it's Final Fantasy, it's an RPG, they're probably gonna make it super advanced and stuff. But no, it's quite simple and actually fun to do. So that I liked. I thought that was pretty neat. Dungeons are actually really cool. I like the dungeons a lot. The only problem with the dungeons, sometimes the dungeons themselves are great. They're really neat to go through. The only problem I have with the dungeons is there are tight spots in combat that can really mess with your camera angle. And there's this one dungeon I went and did where I had to get on a ledge, like, you know, going up and over a ledge and stuff, and a monster came down on me and knocked me off the ledge, and I got knocked down. I had to climb back up, and little things like that where the combat system is a little wonky. But anyways, the dungeons themselves are pretty cool, other than sometimes tight spots can mess with the camera angle. Noctis, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Cloud. He has these headaches, and he gets visions, and he has these really cool dreams and visions. I'm just like, whoa. I love that. I love stuff like that. That's kind of one of my favorite things, is when a character has like these visions of the future, the past, and stuff like that. I think that stuff is cool. The music in the game is amazing, and there's over 200 tracks, which is very impressive. The cool thing is, you actually buy soundtracks. You don't start with every single song in the game, which is kind of sucks, but it's also kind of fun to go around collecting like the different soundtracks for past Final Fantasy games. You can go back and buy it from different shops. They might have a soundtrack from a previous Final Fantasy game. I think eventually, I'm guessing that in the end you actually can get like every single Final Fantasy soundtrack, which is amazing. That's on top of other music that they had in there, which is pretty neat. And you can when you first start, you can only listen to this stuff in your car. But if you actually go into the shop of your car, first thing you should probably do is buy I didn't know this until 19 hours later. Buy the portable radio from your car shop. It's only 100 gil. It's really cheap, and that'll allow you to listen to whatever music you want while you're running around too. There's a lot of running, so you'll want to buy that radio. Built-in photo mode. They actually there's not a real photo mode for the game, which is sad for me because I'm a big freaking screenshot lover, man. I love taking screenshots. But their photo mode is actually pretty cool. Prompto, the character in the game, he likes to take pictures when you're traveling through the world and stuff. It's a little bit unreliable because, you know, he takes plenty of photos that are like, what is this crap? Got like trees up in the camera's face and stuff, you know, and you can't see anything. But he also takes some really nice photos. So it's RNG with that stuff. You get these photos after you visit campsites, and you do the rest, and they will show up after you go through your XP. They're the last thing you see when you leave the camp thing, and it'll let you can save the save the photos, you can share them on Facebook or Twitter. And what I personally have done so far is I saved them with the PS4 share button, and then I'm going to upload them later. One problem I have with that is that these photos in the built-in photo thing, they put an automatic border around the photos because they're in-game photos, so they treat it like they're actual photos because it's a game thing. So when I PS4 share that stuff, you know, it's not full screen. So that's the only thing that bothers me. I'm like, damn it, I wish it was full screen. But some of those photos are really cool, and of course I'm taking my own shots in game as well. But so it's really nice to have that photo mode wannabe-ish kind of a thing. It's actually a pretty cool feature. And that's the list of good things that I have, and now we're gonna move into the terrible, wonderful nightmare that is Final Fantasy 15. Well, I'm gonna jump into the combat. The combat is one of the most disappointing things for me personally, and it's also one of and because combat is so disappointing, it's, you know, like a big deal. Now this is me coming into the game expecting something that it's really not, and at some point, around 15 hours in, I finally realized, I was like, alright, this game isn't what I thought it was going to be. Let me try to enjoy it. And I did for about an hour or two. I was kind of like, I got into it, I was used to it, I was just accepting it for what it was, and then after that, it kept just getting back into all these stuff that bothered me the first 15 hours. So let's get into this list of stuff. Number 1, where the hell are the enemies? First thing you'll notice when you go into this open world of Final Fantasy 15 is you cannot just run around and farm enemies easily. You can farm enemies, but it's not... You have to... my gosh, you can run for 10 minutes without encountering an enemy. It's ridiculous. It's just... What the hell? And at some point later on in the game, because of the story, Dropships will start bringing in enemies to you, which is kind of funny. They're the soldiers hunting down Noctis and his group and stuff, and they will actually bring enemies to you. But when you first start and you want to just go grind and enjoy the world and go traveling the world, it's not worth it. It is not worth it. All right, that was the first thing I wanted to do. I was like, I'm gonna enjoy quests, but I want to go do side quests. I want to run around the world. I want to explore. Exploring does not feel rewarding, and the combat itself, the first thing you do is it's such a pain in the butt to find enemies at all. Once you do, combat can be buggy, really buggy. You got your actually what I found out too at the beginning, because the combat system itself, with just doing the circle button, and as you hold the circle button and you do your combat moves, you push left, right, or forward, and you'll do little different attacks with it. You're not actually doing a combo system, but you will actually do a couple different moves here and there based on which weapon you're using and which direction you push while you're holding the circle button. So because of that, it actually was, it's a really flashy system, but it's not action combat. It really isn't. It's difficult to get for me, it was really difficult to wrap my head around it because it was just not what I was expecting. Action combat, even with I knew you had to hold circle, like I knew that was a part of it, but it's a lot flashier. The flashiness of the combat and the moves and the way the team moves and all that, it's really confusing because the game still plays out like it's a turn-based game. It's just all active the entire time. Instead of being turn-based, it's active animated stuff where you just automatically get your ass handed to you when you're trying to do cool combo moves. So what I found out much later was using your warp ability is actually the most useful thing you can do, especially like always, no matter what. Get out of combat, jump back into it with your warp. The problem with that is you can warp out of combat. There's actually like a combat box, which is the worst part of it for me, because it's not a big combat box. It's actually kind of small. Depending on the monster you fight, actually it depends on the monster. If you fight against like this rare boss or a rare creature, the box will be bigger. But there's usually it's a small combat box, and you can easily warp outside of the combat box, which is really dumb because there are warp points that are specific only when you're in combat. The warp points. Now you can warp around whenever you want and use your mana, and you can just kind of teleport, in a direction or whatever, as long as you have MP and stuff. But during combat, you will actually get very specific warp spots that only happen in combat. And so many times where I will warp to a warp spot and it'll take me out of the combat box. I'm just like, what? I'm in the only reason I got here was because I was in combat, so it'd actually take you out of combat. Now, of course, you can run right back in. The box is like right next to you, you can run back in. It's just it's really silly. There's a lot of buggy stuff like that. By itself, it's nothing. All this stuff just adds up. All of it. There's so much stuff that I'm going to go over here, and all of it just adds up to a bad experience. So one of the things too, I would take damage a lot from something that I couldn't see. Now the enemy would be doing some kind of AoE attack or whatever. When I'm warping in on them, I can't see that they're doing, especially when they're farther away. It was hard to tell when an enemy was doing something that if I warped in, I would take a bunch of damage and crap. So unfortunately, it took me a while to get used to that, and then I found out that if I remove the HUD, it was actually easier to see enemies' actions. The problem with that is when you remove the HUD, you can't see anything that you need to see. You can't tell what your health is at, and there's just these important things that you need. Now I was thinking at some point, hopefully I will get good enough at the combat to actually be able to go around fighting without the HUD. And I've done it a couple times, but it's kind of tough. It is kind of tough. Even though it is easier to dodge enemy attacks, you need to know how much MP you have in order to know if you can warp and stuff. Anyways, let me move on to my next list because I could go on about how bad that is. I think it would have been cool to, so what you can do, you can remove the HUD completely. I think it would have been cool if they had let you remove certain parts of the HUD instead of, all or nothing. It'd have been cool if you could just remove the map, if you could just remove like certain little things, if you could just if they gave you different options to take off certain HUD stuff and not everything at once. That would have been nice. have to avoid enemies kind of often. And this especially early on. This reminded me a lot of Xenoblade Chronicles X, where you have all these like low-level enemies surrounded by much higher level enemies. So that is annoying. I found myself it just made it so much harder to grind. Like you cannot just run around and just grind levels. You can't do it. It's really annoying. On top of that, when you do kill enemies, you don't gain any money. You only get money, gil, from doing quests. So farming monsters gets you no money, and that's terrible because money, you don't get a lot of money. Some quests give you a bunch of money, but also stuff is really expensive. I still haven't bought a single thing other than like a few soundtracks for the music because it's so freaking expensive. Stuff is so expensive. I don't know, man. I haven't done a lot of side quests either though, because it's just the way the game plays out. It's a mess. All right, let me see if go through more of my list here, because this will explain everything and why it's such a mess. Danger health. Oh, this is the worst part. I actually like the danger health status itself. When you lose like your health and it goes all the way down, Noctis's health. Actually, no, the whole group does this. When they lose all their health, you enter this danger state, and while you're in danger state, your permanent health bar decreases. And if you get healed up, somebody picks you up and pulls you out of danger state, your health stays that max until you use a potion, a specific potion meant for that, or until you go to a camp. So there are potions that, not regular potions, but like elixirs. It's a special potion that brings your health back to normal. Or you can go to a camp and it also refills your health back to normal. But if you go in a danger zone, your health slowly drains. Your actual full health bar will drain until you're picked up. So the problem with this is the AI are a bunch of freaking useless idiots when it comes to this. They almost never pick. You can walk over to your AI while you're in danger, and they will literally just walk around you, circle around you, keep on fighting. You'll hear one of them go, "Hey, need your help," and you're still sitting there dying. Your health is draining all the way down. It's ridiculous. To me, anyways. This is coming at it as an action game. So I only, much later, 19 hours in the game, I realized, I think they really, as that's a feature in the game, they really want you to treat it like it's a classic Final Fantasy. They want you to use your potions, they want you to stock up, and the problem that I'm having with that is, like I said, you don't get money a lot. Money is hard to come by. So trying to stock up on potions is a bit tough. But it'll be for the people unlike me who actually want to do this micromanaging and worry about how much money they're making and trying to find ways to earn money and stuff. I just wanted to play a cool, fun action Final Fantasy game. So that's, I obviously got the wrong freaking game. Let's see. Enemies are either too easy or too hard. And this is straight up. After 19 hours, even on easy difficulty, I lowered the difficulty. I was so tired of it. I was so sick and tired of either enemies being too easy or too hard. So no matter what, now they're all kind of normal-ish. Even if they're too easy, there's some that are, even on easy difficulty, some will actually kick my butt. It's a very confusing game because of that. There's so many things, and that's one of them. Enemies, there's no middle ground. Enemies are either too easy or too hard. Doesn't matter if they're the same level as you. They're either too easy or too hard. I love casting the spells. The AoE damage they do is really freaking cool, but I think it's completely idiotic for your spells, your AoE spells, to do damage to you and your group. I have never seen that in the Final Fantasy game before, and I haven't played the most recent ones. I played a little bit of 13. I don't think they had that on that game. I don't remember, but I remember playing Final Fantasy where you're casting like Ultima and all these AoE Bahamut Zero and Bahamut this, like 10 different Bahamuts blowing up the freaking planet and killing everybody, and your team is like, I didn't take no damage, and you got this game, you cast a spell and everybody's dead. Your whole party is just like, oh, pick me up. It's terrible. It's a stupid thing. But the spells themselves are really cool. Actually, I usually don't cast a spell in the middle of combat. I usually open with throwing a potion of doom at a group of enemies, and that's just awesome. I love the spell effects. I love the way the spells work and stuff. Kind of sucks that they're not regular magic spells, and it's more like an alchemy potion kind of thing. But like I said earlier, I do like the creating the spells and stuff. It's very easy and it's cool. The spells are awesome. So at some, oh yeah, and that's right. And as I was saying, at some point where the dropships come in and they bring you enemies, even at that point, usually the enemies they bring are higher level than you. It's a really weird system. It's such a weird combat system, and it's unreliable. And that's why I think I switched to easy mode after like 10 or 15 hours. I forget at which point. It was either 10 or 15 hours, but there was a certain dungeon I got to. Actually, it might have been like 8 hours. I forget. The first dungeon I got to, the very first dungeon, was around my level. I went in there, and I died repeatedly. I full-on died. Like, I died. I would have to load my game and reset from the beginning of the dungeon. And so I gave up on that dungeon. I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm going to go grind levels. I left, did a bunch of grinding, came back. This is like a level 15 dungeon. Came back at like level 22, and by the time I came back and after I was grinding and I was playing the game, I decided I was going to switch it to easy difficulty. And that's the only way to really treat it as an action game. If you want to try to treat Final Fantasy 15 as an action combat game, put it on easy difficulty, don't mess with normal, otherwise you're going to have to mess with RPG elements, which is, I'm not against that, alright? It's just not the game I was expecting. That's really not. If you want to micromanage, you want to just be stocking up on potions and spamming potions on your team throughout an entire freaking little combat session, that's, for you. If you want to play it like it's an action game, put it on easy. You still can get your butt kicked. So I went back at level 22, and I over-leveled this stuff, and I could still, there were a couple enemies that could kick my butt pretty good. And they're specific enemies, though. In that dungeon, they were called Ronin, and they were freaking really cool dudes. Really cool enemies. And they would smack me around, even though I was like 5 levels higher than them. So, but yeah, that was a pain in the butt. I didn't die, but it tops the stuff where the enemies are too easy or too hard, even on easy difficulty. It's such a confusing system. I've not been able to get a grasp on the combat system for 19 hours. I think it's interesting and can be cool, but it's so broken that it's just like, it's a headache. It's a freaking headache. Let's see. I think I have one more combat thing, maybe a couple. There's another one. Oh yeah, here's a thing that's really funny. The warping combat, the warping system where you warp into enemies and stuff. You actually hold R1 to target an enemy, and that's where you do a reliable warp. Now you can warp into enemies, but if you're not targeting them, you could just warp around them, just do movement of warp. So you want to hold R1 to target an enemy. And actually, when you're holding the R1 button, you can change your target with the right analog stick, normal stuff. And if you want to hold your target without holding the R1 button, you have to hit R3, and then you set the lock in, right? The problem with that is that and I did this a bunch of times in the middle of combat, R3 is also the map button. It'll bring up the map when you press R3. So I kept pressing R1 and trying to hold target on enemies, and my map would pop up so many freaking times. I stopped using R3. I stopped using it, and I just hold R1 every time I want to target an enemy and warp at them. Ugh. Alright, let me see. Yes, I said that. If you want to treat it as an action game, play it on easy. Apparently the game wants you to treat it like any previous FF games in the series where you micromanage and spam potions. Yep, I got that. Let's see. Da-da-da. I have this big old paragraph about self-damage from spells on your entire group. Is just ridiculous. Oh, here's one. Now, apparently, and I didn't realize this until I got Rama? I think they called him Rama. I've always been calling him Ramu, and apparently he's Rama or Rama. Well, I was just like, really? I like Ramu better. Anyways, so I had gotten through Titan, and his whole story was cool. Like, when we got up to the Titan, we fight the Titan, and we earn the Titan, I guess, or whatever. His story was really cool. I like that a lot. There's a lot of really cool stuff in the game. Then I got Rama. And there was this mission I was on where I was supposed to summon Rama. This is like the first mission where you get him. Now, I didn't freaking know this because you don't use this button almost the entire game up until this point. There's a couple points and I didn't Rama. So I get to this part where I'm supposed to summon Rama, right? And I keep seeing on my screen, hit L2 or whatever, right? So I'm spamming L2. I'm just like clicking it. I'm just, do something, do something, do. It says summon, L2, summon, summon, summon. I actually paused the game. I went online. I searched. I was like, what the hell is happening? Of course, forums everywhere. People were asking, what the hell? Apparently, you have to hold L2. Okay, you have to hold it for like 5 seconds, which isn't a big deal. Holding it for 5 seconds isn't a big deal. And then you summon your super summon. And these come up at key parts. Like, you can't summon apparently whenever you want. There's like certain parts in combat where it'll tell you to summon, and then you can summon. Here's the problem, and why it's so hard to figure out. Now, of course, if you do notice when it says L2, there's like a little small arrow above the L2 button, and apparently that indicates you're supposed to hold it. But even if that is what it meant and you figure it out, when you start to hold the button, there is no animation. You just stand there holding the button. Nothing happens on the screen. You have no clue if you're actually casting this spell. There's no indication of anything. You just have to hold L2 and hope that it works. That's what it is. And apparently, what I was reading on the forums too, real quick, I just browsed real quick and I saw the answers. And these guys are like, and you can't get hit in combat when you're trying to summon. You can't get hit. So if you're holding it for a couple seconds and you get smacked, you got to hold it again. Which isn't a big deal, but it would be so much nicer if you could actually see an animation and tell when your thing is working. It's just like, what? That was incredibly frustrating. I couldn't believe that. So I missed the first summon. I actually found out. I realized I missed the first. So there was another time earlier in the game where I did the same thing, where it was like, tell me to hit L2, and I just thought it was a bug. I just assumed it was a bug. I was like, well, apparently L2 doesn't work here, And then the same thing happened this time, and that's why I looked it up, because it happened before when I didn't even know what the hell to do, and I was like, so this time I was like, I'm gonna go look this up. What the hell is happening here? So that's pretty ridiculous. So I missed out. Apparently I missed out on using my Titan Summon. Now, of course, I'll probably get to use them again at some point, but that is just ridiculous. Alright, anyways. Final note on combat. Prompto, the character, is useless as hell. He's so useless. I don't know why, but for some reason, he's supposed to die, apparently. Apparently they built this character around, this character is supposed to die. We made him to die. We made him for you to just get him killed repeatedly, because no matter what level you are, he always has like half the health of everybody else. If you have 1,000 hit points, he has 400 hit points. I'm not even exaggerating that. I'm not exaggerating. I'm just like, what? There's a skill tree. Some of the points in the skill tree, you can equip your dudes with accessories. And there's a talent tree for each character where you can build up, like if you put enough points into them, they can wear up to 2 accessories, up to 3 accessories, and I think Prompto is the only one, I think it was him, might have been Noctis, but I think it was Prompto, where he could wear up to 4 accessories. Now the accessories will add stats for strength, spirit, health, and all that stuff, so it seems like you would have to get Prompto 4 accessories in order to get enough damn freaking health accessories on him so he can actually survive, because that dude, he's just useless, man. He's just dead all the time. He's just always falling over. I love him as a character. I think he's a great character. He's really cool in the group. He's fun. He's funny. He's a little annoying, but he's a cool dude. He's annoying, but he's a cool dude. He's just completely useless, and when it comes to combat, man, it's ridiculous. Alright, final notes here. That was all combat related stuff. Okay, so the final notes I have here. Try to go through this as fast as I can. Sorry if I ramble a bit sometimes, like I am now. The open world. This was hard for me. This is all hard for me to say. All of it. This is, like I said, this is coming at it expecting something that it's not. It's just the way it was presented. I'm so confused by this game. The open world. It feels like a fake open world. Like it's open world, but it doesn't have content. And it's hard to explain that exactly. You would have to play it really to understand what I'm saying, because it's a weird... It is an open world. It's a big world. It's actually huge. It's a really big world. And you spend so much time running. It's ridiculous. You spend so much time running, yet they give you a stamina bar for sprinting. All you do is run everywhere, man. It's either running like for 20 minutes, it's driving for 20 minutes. There's so much running, and I actually like the world. It's just so weird, especially because the way the combat system is. It's like I said, like where are the enemies at? Until the dropships start coming, and when the dropships do come, they're usually higher level than you. I think it depends on the area you're into, though, like on which zone, on what level the enemies are. It's very weird, unreliable grinding system. It's super unreliable, and that's what makes it so frustrating. I can't even get a hang on the combat after 19 hours because I can't even fight an enemy that actually makes sense. It's either too easy or too hard. So exploration does not feel rewarding. It all feels forced. You can't move this way, you can't move that way. There's terrain blocking you from going in certain areas. You have to go all the way around these huge mountains, and there are parts where you're not going to bother going around because the border just goes across the entire damn map. So even though it is a big world, it's not like an open world like Far Cry or Assassin's Creed. It's so different and just weird. It's just weird, and all these things make it feel like a sloppy mess, even though I don't want to say that, because there's a lot of beauty to the game, but it's not what it's not what it seems like it was supposed to be. It's like this fake. It's just fake. It's fake action combat. It's fake open world. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of little things to do, and there's a lot of fun mini games that I haven't even done yet. I like the fishing. I actually think the fishing is kind of fun for a little thing, and I haven't even done chocobo racing yet. I haven't done so much stuff, but it's because it's been so frustrating just getting through the game. Let's see. Can't make a custom marker on the map while you're driving. Actually, this is something that's weird. I didn't even. This is where the UI gets a little clunky. You actually can mark markers, and this took me a while it's such a weird system. When you're in your car and you bring up your map, you can't just manually pop a waypoint down. You have to set your car to auto drive somewhere, and then you can set a custom waypoint. You can either set a custom waypoint, a quest waypoint, or something else. I forget. Maybe a campground waypoint. I forget. So, but when you first open the map, you can't just put a custom freaking waypoint. When you're in the car, you have to set like auto drive and then custom waypoint, and it's so freaking weird. When you're on foot, of course, you can just do a normal custom marker. There was a part. Now this isn't everywhere. But there are these parts, like some parts where you can walk through water, and then other parts where apparently they won't let you walk through water, even though you can tell it's shallow water. Like you have to walk all the way around the lake. It won't let you walk through. Why? Fast travel can only be done while in the car. This is normal fast travel, and you actually unlock like parking spots around the world. One thing you can do is you can teleport to your car from anywhere. Like if you run like a mile or 3 miles away from your car, you can actually teleport directly back to your car, and you're back to where your car was. You can also teleport to the most recent campground that you went without being in your car. Like if you're in the open world on foot, you can either teleport back to your car, or you can teleport back to the most recent campground that you camped at. But that's not... The fast travel system is also clunky and does not feel comfortable. You know, it's just clunky crap. Oh yeah, I didn't even get into the stamina bar thing. I was talking about that. Sorry, I got sidetracked there talking about when I was running through. You have a stamina bar for running, and you run so much. You do so much running, and they make you have a stamina bar. There's even 2 talents to like upgrade how big your stamina bar is. And eventually I will waste my points on those, but I'm getting stuff I actually want and need. And I'll tell you why that I don't get those yet. There's actually a food. It's the very first recipe that your guy Ignis knows. Your group member Ignis. It's the very first food that it's a freaking slice of pizza. He makes this pizza that makes you immune to poison. Has like another stat, I forget what, and it makes you have unlimited stamina. They don't call it, I forget what they call it. They don't say unlimited stamina, but it's like you can sprint forever without worrying about it. So it's basically unlimited stamina. I have never used a single other food. That's what I use every time. And sometimes, though, what really sucks is when you rest at a campground, that's when you spend your XP. You don't actually spend it, but that's when you gather your XP. You don't actually level up. You can run around for an hour, go farm enemies and stuff, and you won't actually level up your stats and stuff until you go camp or rest at an inn. And at that point, when you go to a campground, you can pick which food you want to eat. If you go to an inn, you don't get to pick which food that you want to eat while you're sleeping at the inn. So if you go to an inn and you rest there, and then you end up leaving the inn, and then you go into the open world, you have to go to a campground. Well, you can eat food. There are like restaurants in the towns and stuff where you can pay for food and eat it. But I'd rather go to a campground and get free unlimited stamina. So it's just a weird ass system, man. There's so many things that are so weird. And finally, looting items can be annoying. I actually like the loot system, and this is another little thing, small thing that reminds me of Xenoblade Chronicles X a little bit, where there's kind of loot everywhere. Not as much as Xenoblade Chronicles X. If you ever played, you just run around, you just collect loot, just everywhere you run is just loot, 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 loot. This is a little different. The loot reminds me a little bit of that game, because you see like these little like beams, these very thin beams will light up into the sky a little bit, not up to the top of the sky, but they're clearly visible. They're little beams, little thin beams when you're close enough to a piece of loot. And I just thought that was cool. That's kind of neat. Problem is when you're at, it's not a major problem, but when you get to like this little, like a mining node or a flower node, whatever, I forget what you call those, whatever. We collect flowers, you collect rocks from mines. When there's like, usually at each of these little pockets, there's 3 things that you loot. And loot button is the same as jump button. So when you go over the loot and there's like 3 pieces of loot, you're jumping around the loot. You know, it's freaking funny. All right. Well, anyways, that's it. That is my list of stuff. It was really long. Fortunately, I went through that faster than I was expecting. Even though, well, I'm almost about the same time I was thinking. But I was thinking this might take me an hour to go over. I was worried about it, man. I kind of rushed through some of it. I tried my best not to ramble about certain things. There were a couple things I know I rambled a little bit about. But, so as you can see, it's just been a really frustrating and hard game to enjoy. There are a lot of things that are really damn cool. I actually like the story. The story is pretty neat. And probably it's weird because I kind of hate this game. I pretty much hate it, but I want to finish it. I want to. That's why I'm making this video now. And I'm 19 hours in. I have all these thoughts, and I'm just like, but I still want to play it. And I think part of it is because this is the first time I've been so hyped about a game that I'm kind of forcing myself through it just because I was hyped on it, and that's a weird one for me because usually. I can't remember ever feeling that way before, forcing myself through a game just because I was hyped for it. Usually when I'm disappointed in a game, I'll just be like, screw this game. Pretty much, man, pretty much. But this one was different for me. This one, I loved the Final Fantasy games, and I was really expecting a new Final Fantasy, and it's not what I got, and it's just weird. It's weird because it's just weird, man. Anyways, like I said, you got what I was talking about there with the combat and the open world, all that stuff. That whole list of just outweighs the good. But the good is really cool stuff. It's just me, man. Maybe it's just me. Please let me know. Like, did you also like expect this to be a Final Fantasy Skyrim-ish game rather than a Final Fantasy pretending to be an open world action RPG game? I was not expecting that. Even though I knew the combat system was more simplified, I knew it wasn't going to have like a combo system where, square, square, circle, triangle. I knew it was going to have that kind of thing. But they did have the left, right, and forward do different moves depending on your weapon and stuff. So that kind of does add like a little bit of a combo system to it. Just a little. But the thing about it is, like I said, it doesn't. Just because you have those different moves that you can do, it's more about looks. It's more about an active turn-based battle system with flashy combat than it is an actual action combat system. It's freaking weird, dude. And that's why it's so confusing, and that's why it's been so frustrating. And even the open world has been really frustrating and confusing, and I don't know, man. I hope I explained myself enough. So yeah, so those were all my thoughts, man. Those were everything, and my gosh, thank you very much if you did watch. Thanks for putting up with me, and I can understand if anybody was watching this, maybe heard some of my complaints and were like, "You're an idiot. You should have known this," or whatever. And it's like I said, man, the way it presents itself and the way it's like, it seems so obvious. I'm just gonna repeat myself forever. It was not what I was expecting at all. Doesn't mean it's a bad game. This is just my experience. For me, it's like, what the hell happened? But I would hope and think that a lot of classic Final Fantasy fans will actually really enjoy this because, like I said, it is not an entirely new game like it looks like it is and stuff. You know, it's. Anyways, you guys have an amazing, epic night or day, whatever time it is for you. And hopefully I will see you around in my live streams or in comments and Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. I'll talk to you. Discord, you know, and whatever, man. I will talk to you guys when I can talk to you. Have an amazing day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.